Good afternoon and welcome to the Backbench Business Committee. We have 3 applications in front of us this afternoon. The first of which is Mr. Dean Russell. Dean, welcome and thank you for coming to the committee. Your application is on the subject of artificial intelligence and elections. So over to you, please.
Well, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for seeing me today for this opportunity. Artificial intelligence is dominating the headlines at the moment, and as we know, the rise of artificial intelligence is starting to dominate the way that people will see our work lives, our daily lives, how we communicate with each other. But one of the most pressing areas is around the elections. Around the world today, and this year, we are seeing 49% of the entire world population going to some national election, which in of itself is huge. But when you then take into fact the rise in artificial intelligence, especially this year, the rise of deep fakes, the rise of things called robocalls, which is voice clones, when we look at the use of data, the use of misinformation, deep fake news as it could be called, we're in a period where the entirety of our the way that we live, the way that we do democracy, the way that our elections are ran, could be undermined or at least impacted by the use of artificial intelligence, by bad actors, but also by people who just want to perhaps have a bit of fun and have major impact on the way we rule our country. Now, there are examples of this. Just a few months ago, I did a debate on artificial intelligence and scams, and during an evening debate, an adjournment debate, I made a prediction that in the future there was the risk that perhaps on an election day somebody could get a call from somebody who sounds like their family member using information from Facebook or elsewhere that might call them and say, hey, it was great to see you a few days ago. You know what, I've always supported a particular party, I've always voted, but today don't bother voting because there's I don't think we should vote. We should put a stand against this and put a marker in the ground. Now, I predicted that around 10:30 on the Monday evening. The next morning, woke up and heard that in the US, in the New Hampshire primaries, 25,000 people allegedly had been given a call, supposedly by President Biden, saying precisely that. Don't waste your vote in the New Hampshire primaries. Use it later in the year when it will actually make a difference. Now, that was one example where the speed of thinking that something could happen literally happened. Hopefully it wasn't the person who caused it to. But the reason why I say is there are so many examples now where deep fakes, which is where somebody's image is manipulated, but increasingly the use of video, and I've seen examples as part of the all-party parliamentary group on artificial intelligence where we've been shown live deep fakes where a video call, a live call, is with someone that they believe is a family member, but actually isn't. That sort of stuff could be used for, not just for members of Parliament, but could be used in local democracy. But as we go to the election, perhaps in July, perhaps in October, perhaps in November, but definitely by December, we have just a matter of months before this is going to have a dramatic impact on us. There's another area which are called rumour bombs, where false information is shared, for example, sent to very specific individuals saying don't go to the polling booth today in the US, for example, because there's someone with a gun, or there's 6-hour queues, don't bother going down. And that sort of false information could put people off voting. So it isn't just about this being used to manipulate people to change their voting decision, and that's probably the least likely of all the things. But what it could do is use apathy to get people not to vote. It could use false information to damage candidates. But ultimately, what it could do is damage our democracy. And so I see this debate as an opportunity to have positions from all parts of the House to debate what the risks are, to raise the concerns, to talk about the many case studies that are already coming out. For example, in one country, quite recently, they used deepfake videos of a former president, I believe it was, or former prime minister, who was very well loved, to give an endorsement to the current candidate. There are so many of these examples that are popping up day after day after day. And by the time we get to our election, whenever that may be, there will already be days' worth of debate that could be had. And we haven't yet had a dedicated debate on this in the House of Commons. So what I would say is that I think it's an important debate. It's one that's timely. It's one that will have a massive impact on us moving forward. And I would like to use it as an opportunity to ask the government what plans are in place and also open up opportunities to explore that further. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Kevin, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, Dean, I'm interested to hear some of the thoughts you've had around elections. I'd expect normally to be of interest to a wide group of members of Parliament for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, though, your application's only got 2 signatures. Is there more you're adding?
Yes, so I've got a full list for you.
Right.
So I've got the full complement. I've not reached out to as many opposition members as I would have liked, but we've got 4 opposition members at the moment. But in the space of a few hours, we've been able to fill this up. Part of the delay was the reaching out over the past week, but I can assure you I've got the full list. I can give that to you. And I think actually this is an area that when you talk about technology and artificial intelligence being one of those things, a lot of people go, well, I don't really do much about tech. It's not really an area. When you talk about the risks around deepfakes, when you talk about the risks around democracy, when you talk about what they might have heard about in the news in other parts of the world, all of a sudden it becomes very prescient. And I would say that when we have this debate, I think we'll not only find that there's even more people will want to speak in it, but I think it will start a discussion that will probably lead to further members of Parliament coming to this backbench debate to want to explore additional topics related to this.
Okay. And the next point I had was you tick the box for half a day in the chamber, which will be a 3-hour debate, which obviously with only a relatively small number of applications of supporters is
that time, yes,
less likely to be, I think, to be filled, if I can put it that way. Would Westminster Hall be acceptable for 90 minutes?
Yes, but I do think this is so important to our democracy. I really feel it needs to be on the floor of the House. And that isn't just because I'm sure everybody who comes in here would say the same element.
Yes.
But this is about who runs the country. And I would say that actually, if anything, even if this wasn't artificial intelligence, but it was just about election interference, I think to have that on the floor of the House, in part for colleagues to debate it, but also I think it gives a weight of importance to the general public. Because what I found when I spoke about in my adjournment debate about artificial intelligence and scams, the number of people who suddenly went, actually, yes, I've had that happen to me, or being aware of the risks of this. So I think part of our role in Parliament is to educate the public about risks. And the truth is with this, we can't necessarily stop the flow of the technology, but what we can do is explain to the public that if they get a call on election day from someone they love, saying something that's very different from what they've said before, perhaps that's a red flag that this could be something that is happening from a bad actor, something that's actually trying to interfere with our democracy. I think doing that from the floor of the House is absolutely essential.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else, Paul?
Yes, I mean, you mentioned you've had an adjournment debate. You've mentioned as well what you want to do is create awareness. But is there anything actually you want the government to do? Because from our perspective, obviously, we'd look at this as being a general debate, as Kevin has suggested. Obviously, we'd slot it to Westminster Hall. But if you want the government to do something, you'd have to have a divisible motion that would take action.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, my take is we need to make sure that there's a very clear position for the government how we're going to deal with this, both in terms of the investment that's needed, in terms of any awareness campaigns that are required. This isn't about asking for very specific legislation, but I do think there needs to be a government action following this, which is about leading up to the election. What's it going to do to deliver for the security of democracy and the security of this country? So I think there's a clear need. I also would say that in my adjournment debate, of the half an hour I had, I only was able to include one paragraph about the election side of things. Everything else was purely about scams, but many of the applications of those scams could apply to elections. But we haven't, as of yet that I'm aware of, had a dedicated debate on the floor of the House about elections and about democracy and the impact of AI on those. And I feel very strongly that the government needs to hear it loud and clear, and hopefully we'll hear it from a lot of voices that there's a need for measures put in place to protect us.
And if it were to be allocated to Westminster Hall, which government department do you think would be answering?
I would say Cabinet Office, actually, because I think it's cross-departmental and actually goes to the core of everything that we do as a country.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Dean. That's much appreciated. Thank you for your application. If you could leave your list of signatures with the clerk, please, I really would appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And if I may, Chair, I've got 2 other people that would be happy to sign. I left a blank space in case I needed an extra.
You can write their names in if you're confident that
yes.
If you're confident that they'll sign, just write their names in.
I'll do that now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. Anthony Magnell, please. And Anthony, welcome. And your application this afternoon is on the vexed subject of potholes and highway maintenance.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's lovely to see you back here as well. I missed you last week, if it's any consolation, but Mr. Blackman did an excellent job.
Very good.
Be careful.
Flattery, I've been told, gets you everywhere. Mr. Chairman,
I think that's philately, wasn't it?
Mr. Chairman, I have put in for a debate on potholes because, for all too often, this is one of those subjects that we politicians in Westminster try and avoid because we say it is the local responsibility of district councillors and county councillors. And with the reallocation of HS2 money, I think a sum of about £36 billion being reallocated to transport networks across the country over a 10-year period, I think it's right that we have a debate on the floor of the House with a votable motion for the government to bring forward perhaps an annual report on the state of UK highways. Something along those lines would be positive, but to ensure that we could actually get members of Parliament in this place to debate, discuss and hold the Department of Transport to account about the state of our roads. I represent a constituency alongside Mr. Foster, which is in a county which has got the largest road network of anywhere in the United Kingdom, of 8,500 miles. I suspect nearly every single one of those roads has got a pothole on it, or you'd certainly believe it at the moment. And indeed, I'm so well experienced in changing tyres of cars, I could give any Formula One pit stop team a run for their money. But I do think the serious point of this is that we need to be able to see the allocation of that money brought forward, making sure it's front-loaded rather than just allocated over a 10-year period. And that's why I'd like to use this debate. I've had obviously a number of signatures already, but since I sent out an email to all colleagues, I've probably had the response of about 80 or 90 colleagues saying that they would like to take part in this. Having sat through Mr. Russell's excellent suggested debate on AI, I know we all make the case for it being on the floor of the House. I'm happy to wait as long as the committee would like me to wait to try and have this on the floor and to ensure that we can raise it in the proper and timely manner.
Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. I think probably it's the opposite comment to the last one, is that obviously with 28 odd people, whether a 90-minute would be enough. The point, though, is on the form it said applying for a general debate, but from what I'm hearing, you feel that with the numbers and there having been generic debates around, virtually every county's probably had someone debate, that it would actually, you'd rather go for an actual substantive motion.
I would, and that's partly brought on by the extraordinary amount of support from colleagues to hold this debate. I mean, I do think, we are sometimes very pleased in this place to hand off things to our councillors. I think at this point our councillors are coming back to us in desperation saying, can we please do something in this place to ensure that it's debated and discussed? And since we're the mother of all parliaments, now's the time to do it. And I think if we're going to get anything out of this, we should have a motion that actually attracts, something for the government to work on and something that hopefully future parliaments will be able to benefit from as well.
And just to be clear, in terms of the motion, would it be viewed to be a UK-wide motion given some of the signatories? Because of course some elements of roads are devolved, but would it be asking for a UK-wide report, for example?
Well, I know your expertise from the Wales office, but obviously this does have some issues in terms of what's devolved and what's not. Obviously, I'd like to see ensure that you could have it as UK-wide, partly because the reallocation of HS2 has also been taken into account in the Barnett formula. So therefore, actually, I see no reason that we shouldn't include our Northern Irish, Welsh and Scottish friends in this debate and ensure that we've got a good representation for it.
Thank you very much.
So, Anthony, you've wished to have a chamber debate. The earliest date we could offer you is actually Thursday, the 23rd of May, literally the day before we break up for the Whitsun recess. Mm-hmm. If we offered you that, the committee may or may not offer, would you be in a position to accept?
Mr. Blackman, I'll bite your arm off for it.
There you go.
That's right, is it? There is an opportunity actually. We've got those two dates mixed up, Bob. Those two dates mixed up, so it could actually be the Thursday, the 16th, and that would then go there, I believe.
I am overseas on the 16th of May, I'm afraid.
Overseas on the 16th.
I'm sorry.
In that case, right.
I thought we... Okay.
I think we've had the whole day.
Okay. Well, anyway, thanks. I'm just wondering, Kevin, didn't a distant relative of yours have a problem with a pothole in Gloucester?
That's a good one, yes.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we missed the jokes.
No, I get it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you.
Anthony.
Cheers.
That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed. And last, but certainly by no means least, Mr. Jim Shannon, please.
Mr. Chairman, likewise, we're very pleased to see you back, and I know I have to say that your deputy did exceptionally well, as he was expected to do.
Right, Jim, your application this afternoon is on short money funding for abstentionist parties.
Yeah. It's quite a specific issue, and we have managed to obviously all of our party members have signed it, 4 Conservatives, 1 Independent and 1 Labour. I know that the Honourable Lady always reminds me that 4 Conservatives have to do it, and they have. Very quickly, if I can, run through the reasons behind it. I know you probably may have that in front of you, Mr. Chairman, but it's just for the record to have it said. The 1999 resolution on short money does not specifically state that short money funding is not available to parties whose members have not sworn the oath, as it was introduced to offer assistance for parliamentary duties. It follows that it should not be available. Members who have not sworn the oath cannot participate in parliamentary proceedings. So paragraph 1 of the original 1975 short money resolution provided that financial assistance was available to parties to assist that party in carrying out its parliamentary business. And paragraph 6 required parties to certify that the expenses they claim for had been incurred exclusively in relation to that party's parliamentary business. These terms are repeated in the resolution of the 26th of May 1999. Moving forward to February 2006, the House of Commons agreed to create a similar scheme solely for an opposition party represented by members who have chosen not to take their seats. The motion provided for expenses wholly, exclusively and necessarily incurred for the employment of staff and relating support to members designated as their party spokesman in relation to the party's representative business. There is no definition of representative business in the motion, and hitherto the term had not been used in parliamentary procedure. The terms of the motion would appear to allow Sinn Féin to use funds calculated on the same terms as short money for different types of expenditure, such as for press and publicity and other representative functions. 76 other opposition parties have access to short money to support parliamentary business only, and no equivalent extension for representative work has been announced for them. So we're clearly, Mr. Chairman, we have a disparity. There's an anomaly here. The resolution was amended on the 23rd of March 2016. In line with the amended short money resolution, changes were made to the seats and votes elements used to calculate the amount of representative money a party was entitled to. The operating formula was amended to use the Consumer Prices Index instead of the Retail Prices Index. And reporting requirements were changed. In July 2018, the members of State Committee combined the representative money and short money resolutions. Sinn Féin's allocation for the scheme for 23-24 are as follows. I think, Mr. Chairman, what I'm saying is this, that this should be debated in its entirety to highlight the disparity that occurs and ensure that ministers have cognizance of these concerns as we approach a new electoral mandate, and this must, I believe, be addressed sooner rather than later. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed. Questions, colleagues?
Quickly.
Yes, Kevin.
As always, well in order, Jim. It's almost as if you do this regularly.
Yeah.
In terms of which department you'd see as responding, which would you see? Because obviously the direct issue relates to Northern Ireland politics and the abstentionist position of Sinn Féin. But obviously it's spending more generally, and it may not necessarily be just that party in future. Which department would you look to respond to this?
Mr. Chairman, I was sitting there and I was conscious of that question you were going to ask me, and right away my first thought was Northern Ireland office, but it's not, because it's more than that.
Great.
This is for every party who may find themselves in this position for the future. So we're we're discussing a precedent for everyone. So I would probably look to the committee for direction and what the right.
And would you, if you saw it as a financial issue, there'd potentially be Treasury. If you saw it as, for example, a constitutional issue, there would be a Cabinet Office.
I would suggest it's Well, my thinking it may be a constitutional issue. I suspect it probably more so is. The one thing is quite sure.
Minister, but who was the minister at the time when these measures were put in place?
Well, there were three bits of legislation in the background that I referred to the 75 short money, referred to the resolution May 1989, and then referred to the 8th of February 2006, and then fourthly, and not lastly, but the resolution was amended on 23rd of March 2016. I'm sorry, and I apologise to you, Mr. Chairman, and to the committee for not knowing who that was that did that. Apologies. I should have known that.
Well, I think to be fair, Mr. Chairman, it would actually be the government who decide who they put up anyway. So they could take a view, or whether it's NI. That I think, though, it's pretty interesting your pitch that it's more of a constitutional issue, because yes, initially you might think this is about Sinn Féin, about their position, but actually if it's about the whole principle of it, it could apply to someone who, for whatever reason, decides not to take this seat in the House. It's not necessarily restricted purely to Northern Ireland if we look back in the history.
Yeah, exactly.
Nigel?
Are you not tempted by a motion on this one to suggest that short money shouldn't be paid to abstentionist parties? I mean, isn't that I'm guessing that's the point of your debate.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if I could say respectively, that the point of this debate is there's an anomaly. There's something wrong. Parties that don't attend qualify for short monies, whenever others who, if there's special conditions for Sinn Féin. I think it's been probably a bugbear for many years. We have approached, if we can say this, we've approached government as well, so they're aware that we're asking this for this backbench committee request for a debate. So I suspect that government will indeed I not suspect government will come back with a response. We want to see the rules changed. The rules are unfair. They create an anomaly. I think there's something not right, and I say this with great respect. If people don't want to attend here, that's their choice. But if they qualify for something by not attending here, which creates an anomaly or a dispersion, then I think this has to be debated and looked at.
Anyone else? I mean, from my perspective, Jimmy, your application does look a tad partisan in terms of who's actually signed it. I mean, you've got 7 DUP members and I think 4 Conservatives and an Independent. You've got nobody from any of the other opposition parties.
No, I have. I've got Kevin Jones. Right, my apologies. I might have been a late one coming in. I'd seen Kevin yesterday and I asked him. So Kevin Jones from the Labour Party. So I haven't neglected the Labour Party. I never would, Mr. Chairman. You would know that. I did it. Sorry, if I haven't done it right, I apologise. But my understanding was if we had 4 Conservative, that's government, and then the other ones would be opposition.
Right. I'm sure that Mr. Jones will provide you with the cover that you require.
All right.
Okay.
I'm happy to leave this if that helps you. Would that be helpful?
No, that's fine.
We'll do that. Okay.
Jim, previously you've declined to have debates on Thursdays.
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
Yeah, we were hoping, and again, I apologise to the committee for asking this. I'm presuming that the way that sometime early June, if it could be a Tuesday, it would enable all of our colleagues, forgive me, to be available. Ever mindful that we're travelling a distance, and not saying that makes us any better than anybody else, but you understand the predicaments that we all have.
Okay.
Okay.
You. Anyone else? So you're looking for a Tuesday morning when the
please.
Cabinet Office or whichever the department, the government wish to put up. I mean, the trouble is we've got to kind of like look at the list and suggest a date.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it probably would be the Cabinet Office, wouldn't it?
It would 25th of June.
Yeah. 25th of June?
Well, just go by the rota.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're looking at mid to late June potentially.
I told my colleagues, I said, guys, if we're going for a Tuesday, you're going to be middle, late June. I wasn't far away then, and my predictions.
Okay.
Again, I'm happy if that's okay, if you can facilitate us. That's much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Jim. That concludes our public deliberations. We'll now go into private session. Order. Thank you.
The proceeding has ended. The proceeding has ended. The proceeding has ended.